It's been a crazy day of NHL trades, lots of activity. Today we're going to take a look at the latest rumors around the players who have not moved as of yet. We're looking at Chychrun, and we're looking at Gavrikov, Cole Barreto, UC Saros is another name catching a lot of attention, as well as JT Miller, Brock Besser, and others. Plus we have news from the NHL waiver wire. We have a suspension, and we have another trade as well involving a prospect, and a couple of mentions of this day in hockey history. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. Today's news has been a crazy day. All kinds of videos on the channel with all the other trades that have taken place. This video will kind of summarize the remainder of the NHL news that's worthy of discussion, as well as some other rumors of things that we may still see ahead of the NHL Trade Deadline. So first up, we have a couple of items I want to mention quickly on this day in hockey history. It's been fun to always look back. This day 13 years ago, we had the NHL players at the Olympics in Vancouver 2010. Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal in overtime for Team Canada to win the gold medal in the really awesome match they had against the United States in the final there for the goal. So a big moment there. And also on this day in hockey history, 10 years ago in 2013, the Calgary Flames signed Ryan O'Reilly to an offer sheet. It was a 2-year deal, total value of $10 million. The Colorado Avalanche, who he was with at the time, ended up matching the offer sheet and kept O'Reilly's services. Of course, he didn't end up staying there for too much longer after that before he was ultimately moved. But I guess the other caveat here that would have impacted things is if the Avalanche would have allowed the Flames to take O'Reilly and take the compensation instead, he would have needed NHL waivers because that was part of the lockout season. He had played in the KHL, so because he had played overseas, he would need waivers to re-enter on another team. So they could have lost him anyways. He could have ended up on a completely different franchise. So some news there of things that could have caused things to look a little bit differently in the NHL. The NHL released a memo today to all 32 NHL GMs warning them about acquiring injured players at the deadline for the purpose of stashing them on the cap, only to activate them in the playoffs. Basically warning them that deals like that will be investigated for salary cap circumvention. Doesn't mean they'll be charged or fined or anything, but it could happen. So if you're acquiring a player that's going to go on LTIR and then not play, except then magically reappear in the playoffs, then obviously that's an issue now. Players that are on an existing team now, they've been injured, they're on LTIR, they come back, that's completely different. They just want to make sure teams are not acquiring players strictly for that purpose. And we'll see if anything like that actually takes place, and if the league will look into anything. We had a signing come early this morning. The Red Wings have signed defenseman Jake Walman. He gets a 3-year contract extension, which includes a 10-team modified no-trade clause with an average annual value of $3.4 million. I think this is a great signing. Walman's come a long way since he's ended up in Detroit. A lot of potential. I know, for example, they are in the middle of a back-to-back right now. The Ottawa Senators had tons of block shots in the last couple of games. He's a real solid D-man that can move the puck, skate well, and pretty decent at both ends of the ice. So I think it's a well-earned contract, and they found themselves a nice find when they picked up Jake Walman from St. Louis there a while back. News from the NHL waiver wire. Scott Harrington, who was on waivers yesterday, newly acquired player for the New Jersey Devils, of course, who came over in the Timo Meier trade, has been claimed. He's going back to California. This time he's on the Anaheim Ducks, so the Ducks claimed him. So he probably never left San Jose. I would imagine the Devils were probably up front with him when they acquired him in the Meier trade, that he would be going on waivers and just to sit tight to see if he would clear or be picked up. And obviously he won't have too far to go. So that's one activity from the waiver wire. And the Penguins have a couple of players on waivers today too, obviously trying to create some salary cap space and flexibility. They have forward Brock McGinn on waivers. He's got 2 more years at 2.75. Hard to imagine a team claiming him, but it looks like they are trying to move him, so we'll see how things go. He's got 10 goals and 15 points this season. And Penn's defenseman, Mark Friedman, also on waivers. He's got, I think, another year at $750. So a cheaper contract, serviceable defenseman. Most teams he'd be a 6, 7, 8 kind of guy. So we'll see where things go with waivers tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern if anybody's picked up. But the Penguins are certainly trying to create some much-needed flexibility to make some other moves. We have a suspension today as well. Rangers defenseman K-Andre Miller was indeed suspended. We talked about this, I believe it was yesterday, where he spit at Drew Doughty and was kicked out of the game. And based on the lack of reaction from player safety, I was under the impression that nothing was coming because it had been an extended time, like long enough that normally you hear something by now. But it was announced this afternoon that he was suspended for 3 games. So Miller will be out of the lineup for some time. That's going to be, obviously a blow for the Rangers, but obviously they're going to be riding, a big high after completing the Patrick Kane trade today. The Rangers will have a lot of other things on the go here to kind of get through that, I'm sure. A few other notes from NHL player safety today. A couple of fines issued from last night's game between the Stars and the Canucks. The Dallas Stars defenseman Colin White was fined $5,000 for a pretty nasty elbow on Canucks forward Nils Allman. And Christian Wolanin of the Canucks was fined just over $2,000, which are both the maximum amount on the CBA that they're allowed for a slash against Stars forward Ty Dellandre. So a few fines there. Another trade took place, but this one was a pretty minor one. So they're doing its own video. I thought I mentioned it here. It's not even involving an NHL player, but the Anaheim Ducks have traded NCAA prospect Henry Thrun, who was having a pretty solid campaign, would have possibly become a free agent because his signing rates are going to be expiring soon, and he had made it clear to the Ducks that he was not going to sign. So therefore, they've traded his rates to the San Jose Sharks for 2024 third-round pick. So we'll see if the Sharks can get him under contract. He'll probably get more of an opportunity there. The Sharks probably have, considering they're trying to go through a bit of a retool here, maybe they'll get him more NHL action. But the Ducks are certainly, not exactly the deepest team right now. They're going through a rebuild as well. So hard to say why he didn't want to go there. But if they weren't going to get him signed and they get an asset in return, that's good for them. There's also some different rumors about things that have not happened yet. It's been a busy few days in NHL trade activity. For example, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, Shea Goldman of the Athletic says that she has league sources saying that the Canucks do have a sizable trade in the works with a team that's waiting on making some additional moves due to cap management. And there's a lot of speculation that could be Pittsburgh, kind of like the Patrick Kane trade. It's been agreed to for a few days, but they had to wait for things to go a certain way between the Rangers putting players on waivers and accruing a little bit of extra space so they can have the space necessary to get it done. It could be JT Miller. Some think it might be Brock Besser. It's a forward with term is what all the NHL insiders are saying. JT Miller would be from that area. It would be sort of like a homecoming to head back to that part of the U.S. to play. But it's a big, hefty contract. But Brock Besser might be more realistic. But there's been different conflicting reports on both players. So it's not really clear who they may be having conversations on. But the Vancouver Canucks are certainly busy. There's lots of talk that at least one of these two are going to be dealt. And it could happen sooner or later, maybe as early as tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes. But the Penguins appear to be a team that's looking to make a significant move here. And one of these guys may be on their way to Pittsburgh. There's also rumors from Darren Dreger of TSN tonight that the LA Kings are talking to the Jackets about Gavrikov, and they might be pivoting in a different direction to add another defenseman here. Hard to say exactly what's taking place, but he said that those talks are heating up, and it could be a combination of a package deal that may also include goaltender Jonas Korpisalo. Korpisalo was held out of tonight's game as well due to trade-related reasons, so there's definitely interest in him, and that could be something that goes together to LA. We know LA would like to add goaltending help ahead of the playoffs. That might be the solution that they go with and get the defenseman too. Gavrikov has been sitting out for some time and always getting antsy to get back in the lineup. So we'll see where things go on that front. But LA appears to be pivoting away from the Chychrun deal and going towards Gavrikov. But when it comes to Chychrun, there's lots of talk today from various NHL reporters. There's still lots of interest, lots of talks. Teams stepping up, getting back to the Coyotes, trying to see if the deal can be done, in different ways. Can the price change? LA was mentioned as one of those teams. There's been talk about other teams as well, including St. Louis, Washington, to some degree Columbus, if they can get the assets from Gavrikov. No mention of Ottawa getting back in the mix. Some talk about LA still being in there, but like I said, with the Gavrikov news, I think they've kind of pivoted away. It might have a better shot at getting that done. So that Chychrun might not really be as the top of the priority list here anymore. But certainly lots of interest out there on Chychrun. Carolina's another team to watch as well when it comes to Chychrun. They might make a pitch here, which wouldn't surprise me. They always have a really solid blue line, and it would be even better adding him into the mix here. Gus Nyquist, also of the Columbus Blue Jackets, was also traded this evening as well. Another trade that took place that I haven't done a dedicated video on. Nyquist has been traded to the Minnesota Wild. He is currently injured, so he falls into that category of things that I mentioned in the NHL memo would be looking for to make sure that they're not trying to circumvent the cap. But everything we've heard about Nyquist indicates that he should be back ready to play before the end of the regular season. So Minnesota certainly sees him as a valuable piece at the last little stretch that they can use to hopefully secure their playoff spot and have for the playoffs should everything work out for them here that they'd intend to do. But certainly lots of deals to be had. Also talk from Darren Dreger about Cole Parayko. They're getting more interest as well. LA was also a team that was mentioned in that front. So it sounds like the Kings, like Ottawa, have been inquiring on just about every defenseman that's available out there, trying to see what makes sense for them, what can work. So not much mention about Ottawa, though, who's certainly on pace to win their second game in a row against Detroit, third in a row overall, and get themselves to be within a couple of points of a playoff spot. Some rumblings appear Dufour was looking to add either a combination of a center and a defenseman, but haven't really heard much more on that. Not much in the rumor mill being mentioned about them right now, so it's not really clear what they might be up to. Nick Bjugstad of the Coyotes, also another player held out of tonight's games due to trade-related reasons, so there's certainly interest in him. JVR in Philadelphia, apparently things are fairly quiet. There's still a good chance I think he gets dealt, but the interest has not been as high as some thought it would. I mean, he's still a capable player in my opinion, but he has had a rough probably last 4 to 6 weeks of the season, not really producing a lot. And it sounds like teams might be shying away looking at other options, and he'll be more of a fallback option depending on what else all transpires amongst the trade market. But it's been a crazy day. Hopefully these rumors are still relevant in the next half an hour to an hour before this makes it to YouTube, so stay tuned. There could be other trades tonight. I'll keep you up to date with all the news around the NHL Trade Deadline, and of course beyond with all the news around all 32 NHL teams. So if you do, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.